Okay, let's dive right into this. Today, we're taking an immersive tour into one of the absolute most fascinating aspects of ancient history, the Roman underworld. I want you to picture the bustling, sun-drenched streets of ancient Rome, packed with senators, merchants, soldiers, the whole shebang. Now imagine a completely silent, deeply mysterious world existing just beneath their feet. We're looking at the Daimones. It's this incredibly complex pantheon of deities that ruled over death, destiny, and honestly, everything in between.
But before we actually meet the deities themselves, we really have to start with a massive question. How did ancient Romans manage the ultimate unknown? We're talking about a highly structured society here, right? A culture that's totally famous for its rigid laws, its massive stone aqueducts, and these hyper-detailed civic censuses. They literally measured and categorized absolutely everything in the physical world. So how did they attempt to organize and, bureaucratize the absolute chaos of mortality? Well, they did what Romans do best. They created a system.
And that system was governed by the Daimones, the deities ruling over the dead, the nether realms, and ancestral spirits. The Romans actually viewed these ancestral spirits almost like minor household gods, beings that required ongoing attention and respect long after they were gone. So this wasn't just some single, terrifying figure waiting in the dark. It was an entire administrative hierarchy. It's like a giant cosmic corporation. In this explainer, we're going to take a chronological journey together, mapping out exactly what the Romans believed happened from the very second of passing all the way down into the deepest, darkest nether realms.
All right, let's start with Section 1, the business of dying.
Because, before you can deal with the supernatural, you got to deal with the physical world. Meet Libitina, the goddess of funerals. The Roman afterlife didn't immediately kick off with grand magic or intimidating monsters. It started with the harsh, everyday practicalities. In fact, undertakers in ancient Rome were literally called libigenarii, because her temple served as the absolute headquarters for the city's massive funeral industry. Libitina was the grounding force here, basically proving that death starts with paperwork.
Let's break down her portfolio a bit. Her domain covers funerals, corpses, and burial equipment. But here is the truly fascinating part. Her temple actually collected fees for deaths. To keep an accurate civic census of the dead, you were legally required to register a specific coin at her temple whenever someone passed away. It functioned exactly like an ancient death tax. To get your loved one properly buried and started on their underworld journey, you literally had to go through her bureaucratic franchise. It just goes to show that even back in antiquity, absolutely nothing is certain except death and taxes.
Moving on to Section 2, crossing the river Styx.
And this brilliantly illustrates the flow of the journey. Once the physical body is handled and the paperwork is, effectively filed with Libitina in the land of the living, we hit the magical threshold. Imagine a soul leaving those physical preparations behind, suddenly standing on the misty, desolate banks of a great river and realizing they cannot pass to the underworld on their own. They need a very specific guide for this transition. This middle step, totally non-negotiable. That guide is, of course, Charon, the ferryman of the dead. His sole vital role in this massive bureaucratic machine was to carry departed souls across the legendary river Styx. But here's the catch. Charon was a notorious stickler for the rules. This is exactly why Romans practiced the burial custom of placing a small coin, known as an obol, right in or on the mouth of the deceased. That was Charon's fare. If you showed up empty-handed, no way. You were denied passage and forced to wander the shores of the river in a state of limbo for 100 years. He's literally the ultimate supernatural gatekeeper, separating the dusty streets of Rome from the eternal realm.
Which brings us to Section 3. Rulers of the deep.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the incredible duality right at the heart of the underworld. On one side, we've got Dispater, also known as Pluto. He's the king of the underworld for sure, but he's also the god of subterranean wealth, specifically things like minerals, gold, and ores. And then on the other side, his queen, Proserpina, or Persephone. She rules the dead alongside him, yet she's the goddess of spring growth and seasonal rebirth. This wasn't just a random pairing, guys. Agricultural rebirth and underground mineral wealth were the two most crucial aspects of the Roman economy. Together, this royal couple represents this incredible cosmic cycle where the end of human life is directly tied to the physical wealth of the earth and the eventual beautiful rebirth of nature. They perfectly bridge the gap between life, death, and money.
All right, let's get into Section 4, Destiny, Oaths, and Vengeance.
So, the underworld wasn't all just hidden wealth and springtime flowers. There were some much darker, totally inescapable forces governing Roman morality. Enter the Parcae, or the Fates. They operate as this unavoidable, unified trio, literally spinning human destiny. You've got Nona,
who spins the thread of a human life from her distaff, Decima, who measures its exact length with her rod, and Morta, who carries the shears that ultimately cut the thread, ending the life. From the moment you take your very first breath, these three are orchestrating the exact nature of your existence. It's a pretty stark reminder that in Roman belief, your destiny is completely out of your hands.
Then we have Orcus. He's an ancient, punishing god of the underworld. What makes him so unique in this pantheon is his extremely strict domain. He specifically enforces broken oaths. To understand why this is such a big deal, you have to understand the Roman concept of fides, trust or faith. Roman business, politics, the entire patron-client system, it all relied absolutely on verbal contracts and personal loyalty. So breaking an oath wasn't just a social faux pas, it was a spiritual crime severe enough to warrant the attention of a dark underworld god. Basically, break your word and you answer directly to Orcus.
But what if your crimes went completely unpunished on Earth? Well, that is where the Furies step in, the Diri or Furia. These avenging spirits were the ultimate enforcers of cosmic law. Their entire job description was to track down those unpunished crimes and expertly execute curses. Armed with their iconic whips, they were believed to physically and mentally torment guilty criminals, literally driving them mad. They essentially acted as a terrifying, personified guilty conscience. They are the underworld's law enforcement, making absolutely sure the cosmic scales are always brutally balanced.
Finally, Section 5, Spirits of the Graveyard. After journeying through the darkest depths of cosmic justice and vengeance, we need to bring the narrative back up to the surface to see how the supernatural touched localized, everyday Roman life. And here we find the genius territorii. The ancient Romans were highly superstitious about the spirits of specific places, known as the genius loci. This meant every single crossroad, neighborhood, or burial plot had a localized guardian spirit that needed to be appeased. You see, you didn't always have to appeal to the mighty Pluto or worry about the terrifying Furies. Sometimes you just paid your respects to the local guardian. They served as a direct bridge, bringing the massive cosmic underworld right to a neighborhood cemetery in your literal backyard.
So, the crucial point here is that ultimately, this entire pantheon is a reflection of human nature's eternal need to make sense of mortality, destiny, and justice. Whether it was putting a bureaucratic price tag on a funeral, terrifying citizens into keeping their promises, or finding comfort in the cycle of seasonal rebirth, the Daemones provided a highly organized framework for the most unpredictable part of the human experience. This incredibly detailed system was as much a psychological tool for the living as it was a map for the dead. Which leaves us with something pretty fascinating to think about today. As you reflect on this incredibly detailed system, ask yourself, who really guards our legacy? Is it the gods of wealth or the spirits of the graveyard? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.